Tickets. Tickets, please. Step inside, take a ride upon the Terror Train. All aboard, be fair warned, these rails house fear and pain. Find a seat, don't mind the heat, just pray the lights stay on. Upon these rails, these bloody rails, in darkness lies no dawn. Yes, step inside, come crawl or glide, with us you shall remain. Upon this ride, this hellish ride, we call the Terror Train. Ticket, please. James Ward Kirk Publications presents Terror Train, Episode 113, Georgia to Alabama.
Welcome aboard. Welcome to my home. I am the disembodied voice, your ghost host, so to speak. Call me Terror. Welcome to my train. Be you dead, undead, or of the living. Tonight, Stuart Keane steps aboard from Georgia, becoming another permanent guest upon our hellish endless track. This story involves our conductor, the evil conductor who toys with the mind of a man, believing to be taking a joyride. Oh, Stuart, you have no idea what hell you have penned for your mortal soul. The fear is oh so lovely. Step in, yes, deeper into the darkness. The conductor awaits. The exchange is made. Oh yes, the exchange is made. And the bloody ticket reads Stuart Keane, fool aboard.
Ticket, please. Fool aboard. by Stuart Keane. Dave couldn't move. An unfamiliar, heavy weight covered his back. Placing his palms on the floor, he tried to push off the ground. Push-ups were never his strong point, and they didn't help him here. His entire body was pinned under the weight. The breath shot out of his nose, shrill and sudden, like a whistle. His eyes focused on the floor before him. The blue carpet was threadbare, but stained with a dark red substance. Glancing at the wall, he noticed the substance also discolored the yellow, flowered paintwork with a diverse red splatter. He imagined some angst-ridden teenager flicking their paintbrush. It's blood. His heart quickened and he closed his eyes. He tried to remain calm. It was blood, no doubt about it. Unmistakable. He didn't know how or why, but someone had bled here, and quite heavily too. Perhaps it was a prank gone wrong, or a severe nosebleed. Dave realized he didn't know where he was. Lord knows why he was here, but he didn't make those decisions. Roger did. Clever Roger, and his schemes, always getting them into trouble. Most recently, he found himself tied to a lamppost for 7 hours after an ill-advised bachelor party. Now, he was lying on a bloody carpet in Nowheresville, USA. For all of his flaws, Roger was very entertaining, and you always got your money's worth. Where the fuck was Roger, anyway? No time for that now. You need to get out of here. Let's get the weight off your back. Maybe this was another of Roger's pranks. That's it. Has to be. Let's take the cripple, get him hammered, and leave him somewhere. You know what? Let's scare the shit out of him too. Make it look like a crime scene. That'll make him piss his pants. Sorry, Roger. Failed again. The weight had to go. Simple plan, rock back and forth gently. Do it a few times, build momentum, and then push through. Once on your back, you'll have a little more control. You can do this. He started rocking back and forth. On the count of 3. 1, 2. On 3, he rolled and managed to slide under the obstruction and roll slowly onto his back. The floor beneath him was well worn and hard, conditions brought on from thousands of feet over an extensive period. The carpet slipped beneath the palms of his hands. Priority was to first get up, and then find out what happened. Find Roger and kick his ass. He rolled onto his back and lay there. Roger's dead visage slapped him in the face. Blood pooled in his eyes and mouth and splattered his forehead. He retched. Several drops sluiced down his cheeks and into his ears. The stench of copper filled Dave's nostrils. Roger's left eyeball swung on its optic nerve and rested against Dave's bloody cheek. He'd found Roger. Dave passed out. When he opened his eyes, it took him a second to remember why he'd blacked out in the first place. But it all came back very quickly. Roger's face was pale and slimy. The low light twinkled off his sallow skin, and Roger's eyes were dead, open but lacking light. The right eye was bloodshot, and congealed blood coated his top lid and nostrils. Every few seconds, a drop of blood would spot Dave's cheek. Roger's rogue left eyeball had twisted on the nerve and rolled away from his cheek. Roger had a huge gash in his head, revealing the cracked skull and leaking brain fluid. His hair and epidermis hung off in a clump, dangling in the air like a flap of unwanted carpet. Roger could see the layers of skin in the flap, and thought it looked like some kind of human cake. He fought back the rising bile and looked away. It took all of Dave's strength to remain conscious. "Keep it together, Dave. Don't panic." Dave shuffled off to the side and slid out from beneath his dead friend. Unable to use his legs, he was sweating profusely after the exertion, and half expected Roger to grab him and feast on his flesh like some kind of zombie. "Don't be stupid. There's no such thing." Dave, finally free of the extra weight, pulled himself along the floor to the wall. He propped himself up against it and breathed deeply. He wiped Roger's blood from his face with his sleeve, smearing blood, and he could feel his own skin stiffening under the coagulated gore. The warm sensation of tears pricked the back of his eyes. He looked at the mutilated body of his best friend and tried to comprehend what happened. Dave looked at his useless legs and, not for the first time, wished he could walk. He hadn't been able to since the age of 5. Roger shared tales of football and tennis and hiking with him on a regular basis, and Dave always felt left out. He wanted to climb mountains and score a touchdown. Right now, I'd settle for staying alive. Walking would be a major advantage. Of all the situations to be in. A noise diverted his attention. A clacking noise, several sounds combined, routine and distant. He recognized it immediately. Carriages bouncing off one another, couplings between cars groaning infinitely, oiled wheels gliding along smooth rails. Dave was on a train. His brain surged to life, remembering his night. The Liberty Express from Atlanta to Anniston, any bachelor's dream, a train designed for debauchery and good times. Dave remembered the slogan from the black and white poster, a poster promising strippers and sex. Dave remembered thinking it was a huge joke. He even bet Roger he was yanking his chain. He'd been wrong. And $10 down. Roger and Dave had boarded several hours ago to watch some strippers, do some coke, neck some jack, and, bonus permitting, fuck some hookers. He remembered the strippers, Candace in particular. Roger paid her to give Dave a lap dance. She caressed his thighs, licked his cheek, and straddled him several times. Her skin was a caramel color, tanned and perfect. Dave remembered making a mental note to get an encore before going home. That's all he remembered. Dave had a feeling some vital information was missing. He didn't have all of the facts. What killed Roger? Why was he on this train, lost and alone? Shit, Roger, what did you do? The train rattled along peacefully. Dave twisted his head and stared down the corridor. Several wooden doors adorned the inside wall. Windows, pitch black with the night outside, stood opposite, on his side and above his head. He shuffled to the door side. Forests blurred by in the distance, scratching silently along the purple night sky. Several sparkling stars decorated the night, as if God himself had thrown a handful of diamonds across it. The hallway arched off at either end, allowing access to the adjoining cars. They were outside the third door. It's time to go. He started to crawl. The carpet scraped and tore at his legs. warming the skin beneath his trousers. It took him 5 minutes to reach the end of the corridor, and, when he did, his hands burned from friction with the carpet. Dave lay on his back and took a few sharp breaths. His forehead and hair were sodden with sweat. Before him, a door, a sign indicating the doors were automatic. "You can do this." He crawled in front of them, and they swished open. Dave crawled through the entrance and stopped dead. The bouquet of death reeked. He vomited in his hand, trying to keep the warm liquid from hitting the floor, but it dripped and drizzled through his fingers. The odors in the room were foreign and putrid, but Dave knew one of them. Cooked meat, mingled with the metallic odor of copper. Dave peered into the carriage. What in God's name? Candace, or what was left of her, blocked his way. Her head was rolling along in the aisle, jostled by the train's rickety movement. Someone had viciously punched out the eyes with a sharp object, possibly a screwdriver. Several gashes and cuts bordered the new holes in her face, her blonde hair caked with black, dried blood. Dave could see the stump of spine protruding from her neck. A dried, white liquid rested on her forehead, some clumped in her eyebrow. Semen? Dave gagged again, turning away from the head. This can't be happening. The train bumped, and Candace rolled toward Dave. He yelped and moved to the side. Candace's head bounced, flipped over, and came to a rest behind a chair. Dave took a deep breath. Careful to avoid vomit and smeared blood soaking the carpet, he pulled himself along. He didn't want to go further into the train, but felt he had no choice. He didn't know where he was. Advancing was the only option. Dave came to a sparse area in the carriage. The room opened up into a restaurant, chairs and tables strewn all about. Several were broken into shards. Dirty plates and cutlery spilled over the floor, their edible contents long gone. Some tables were intact, placed beside the walls, with candles on top, illuminating the room with warm, primitive flames. In the clearing sat a barbecue spit, rolling, cooking a joint of meat. The meat was human flesh, the muscle and shape distinctive. The hairy skin was a rich ham color. As the thigh rolled, Dave heard a crackling noise as the fat surrounding the muscle evaporated in the heat. The aroma reached him. Dave gagged and rolled over. In doing so, he looked up. Pinned to the ceiling was an obese man. His face was a skinless mess. Muscle and tissue were starting to blacken with the heat. His dead mouth stuffed with a torn female breast. A caramel-colored dome of skin, the pink nipple rested on his lower lip. Dave's eyes wandered down, and he realized the man was naked, flaccid penis almost invisible between flabby thighs, his hairy chest slit from neck to navel, and his organs hanging like some demented, visceral decorations. The skin, dimpled and doughy, was flapping in the mild breeze within the carriage. The corpse lacked the left leg, and Dave couldn't help but look at the slowly turning, roasting spit. He vomited again. He didn't hold back. He just let the liquid splash the carpet. A few drops hit him in the face, but he was beyond caring now. He knew he'd made a mistake by coming in here. A carriage scene of death and torture. Exhausted, he rested his head next to his puddle of vomit, the smell of acid and bile preferable to the sizzling human flesh. A door squeaked on hinges, opening from somewhere beyond the turning spit. Dave searched for a new arrival, but saw none. The invisible door closed with a thud. Then he heard footsteps. That's when the man appeared. The train's conductor? The blue uniform was unmistakable. Peaked cap, crisp blue jacket and trousers with a white shirt and a red tie. He carried a ticket machine down by his side, his shoulders coated in a fine white dust. His eyes were shrouded in shadow, as if they weren't there at all. Dave frowned. What was a conductor doing on the Liberty Express? Tickets were only available online. You need to leave. Now! The conductor walked over to the barbecue spit. He leaned in and sniffed deeply, waving his hands in front of his face. Wonderful. Dave held his breath. Don't notice me. The man plucked a sliver of skin from the meat and placed it in his mouth. He chewed silently and swallowed. Oh God, please don't see me. The conductor wiped his greasy hand on his trouser leg. He stepped away from the food and disappeared through a door, whistling to himself. It closed behind him. Dave breathed out. Having witnessed the carnage, Dave doubted anyone was alive on this train except for him. Thinking back, maybe he was only alive because Roger had kept him covered for all that time. He'd read about soldiers doing it to avoid the Nazis. Fuck. Get your crippled ass off this train. Dave rolled around onto his rump. He wanted to return to the corridor, find a room to hide in, and wait until the train stopped. It had to stop sometime, didn't it? Go, now! Sitting on his rump, playing the idea through his head, Dave failed to notice the conductor had returned. He was staring straight at him. My, looky here! A visitor! Oh, Christ, no! Dave felt warm piss spraying his inner thigh. The conductor took a step forward and looked at Dave like he was an animal in a cage. The unseen eyes beneath his hat never tore away. Look, I'm not after any trouble. I just want to get home to my family. He fumbled backward. The conductor laughed. Oh, don't worry, my boy. There's only one family that matters now. And it ain't yours. Dave swallowed. What do you mean? The train stops in Anniston, does it not? The conductor tilted his head. A smile crept across his lips, bearing green, moldy teeth. He still couldn't see the eyes. Where were his eyes? Blood started leaking from his nose. He touched his fingers to the warmth and pulled them away. They shone vermilion in the candlelight. Where you're going, boy, is anywhere but Anniston. You don't need your family or your home, or blood for that matter. The conductor looked up, and that's when Dave saw the eyes. Two small pits of blackness, swirling, deep, mesmerizing. A red pinprick sat in the center of each, and they enticed Dave, made him crawl forward. As he neared, the red points expanded, turning the swirls a dark purple. Dave tried screaming, but nothing happened. On the second attempt, his tongue fell out of his mouth and slapped the carpet with a soggy thud. Blood followed, gushing from his mouth, sluicing between his lips and splattering his chest. Dave looked at the conductor, and cringed. The dark eyes were now a heavenly white. They soothed him, made him feel comfortable, and enticed him. Everything will be fine. Give in to the light. Dave did. His eyes grew heavy. He jerked awake. Sweat trickled down his face and dripped off his chin. His skin burned hot and humid. Just a nightmare. Dave couldn't move. Shit, not again. When he tried moving his arms, he could not. Nothing happened. Dave looked down and saw his arms restrained, covered in blankets. The blankets were white and splattered with blood. The void in his mouth became apparent. Oh, don't tell me. Ah, you're awake. Dave heard casual footsteps. The conductor stepped into view and smiled again. The same evil, dirty smile. Dave felt his heart racing. He tried to speak, but no sound came. He remembered his tongue and looked to the floor, trying to locate it. The conductor smiled. Don't speak, Dave. I can hear your thoughts. Use your mind for once, just once, in your pitiful existence. Dave's mouth felt hollow. He looked at his foe for several seconds before thinking the words, the next question he wanted to ask. What do you want from me? The conductor smiled. I don't want anything from you. Not yet. What do you want from me? He stopped in the center of the room and waited, his eyes hidden again. I want to go home. Where is home? New York? London? Do you mean your family home? Or do you mean your home on this train, with your hookers and friends? Home is where my family is. The conductor slammed a closed fist down on a metal gurney, spinning surgical instruments onto the floor. Dave hadn't noticed the gurney until now. His eyes widened in fear. Wrong. Wrong! Home is where the heart is. Dave felt confused. His head throbbed as if something, was in there exploring. A dull headache began to throb at the base of his skull. The conductor was waiting. Dave closed his eyes. Yes, I know. That's not what you thought, though, is it? Dave said nothing. His eyes squinted, waiting for the entity to continue. Home for you, Dave, is a fallback plan, a settlement. You believe your absence of legs makes you less than a man. Being married hurts your pride. Therefore, you fuck women. You fuck women to prove your manhood. Dave exhaled. How do you know my name? The conductor smiled. I know everything, Dave. I know what scares you. I know what makes your dick hard. I know that you feel weak as a man because you rely on your wife to do stuff for you. Things a man should be able to do, like take the trash out in the mornings. Your legs haunt you. They plague your nightmares. Hell, you think your wife hates you for it. She doesn't, by the way. She just hates when you loathe yourself. You are a pathetic human being. Dave's eyes widened. His brain was working in overdrive now. Oh, I get it now. You're death, aren't you? This is some kind of purgatory. Me and Roger died And this is the stage in between. I'm right, aren't I? The conductor smiled. You couldn't be more wrong. Dave breathed out, dejected. So what? Why am I here? If I remember, you came here of your own accord. You bought the tickets, boarded the train, and partook in its temptations. Dave said nothing. He closed his eyes and tried to block out the sounds in the background. The hissing and cackling of the human flesh mingled with the dripping blood from the obese man nailed to the ceiling. The clacking of the train as it patiently moved toward its unknown destination. He no longer believed the destination Aniston. The train was going to hell. Don't show your fear, Dave. Gut check time. He opened his eyes. The conductor was gone. The room was empty. Boo! Dave looked left, and the conductor was inches from him, his evil sneer mocking him. His eyes were black orbs, swirling, absent of light. Please tell me, what do you want? How can I give you what you want if you don't tell me? Tell me! The conductor smiled. This. His hand raced into view. What the hell? The conductor's white, wrinkled hand grasped a dripping, putrid ball of muscle. Blood was everywhere, seeping, flowing and spilling. It coursed through his fingers, splattering the carpet below with cacophonous thuds. The candlelight shimmered and sparkled of the blood coating the unknown object in his hand. Then the object began to take shape. Dave groaned. His very soul started to lurch and die. A sudden loss permeated his heart, and he closed his eyes. Closing them wouldn't help. The image scorched his brain forever. The spherical orbs connected to a moderately sized phallic shaft. Several stray tendons, smothered in viscera and sinew, splayed from them as shredded flaps of bloody skin sucked to the side of the conductor's hand. Several black pubic hairs still protruded from the orbs, sodden and matted with urine and blood. Blood that seemed dark and textured. Dave looked at his genitals in the conductor's hand and tried to scream. Blood was seeping from his tear ducts. The conductor grinned. If you could scream now, it would soothe the pain. But you can't. What have you done to me? Dave's eyes bulged as the pain started to course through his body, staring at the pit of his stomach and burning north to the brain. Blood slopped down his legs. The conductor continued. You cheated, so you'll spend some time thinking about what you've done. Whilst in pain, I believe people can reflect better, make better decisions. You have a unique chance to consider your options. Many wouldn't get this chance. After all, Roger was given the same choice, and he failed. Dave's body rocked with electric, crippling pain. What choices? The conductor answered. Life or death. Live life without your manhood. Never satisfy another woman again, not even your wife. Or death. I kill you here, and your wife thinks you died in a train crash. You choose. Dave closed his eyes, the pain incomprehensible. It hurts too much. Help me! The conductor walked to the steel gurney and picked up a scalpel. Dave You haven't made a choice. You will pay with your life. Do you understand? Choose. I can't. The conductor lowered his head. So be it. Dave didn't even notice as the scalpel sliced into his stomach. Didn't feel his intestines release from the gaping maw and slap the floor with a wet, soggy splat. His eyes closed. Blood shot up his throat, and he drowned in his own blood. The train never made it to Anniston. It made the front page news.
Yes, our guests have taken their permanent seats. From New York to time infinite. Are you ready to join them? Perhaps another story will lure you. Choose a car, any car, for the time we had a permanent guest. As they tell their tales of horror at its best. Come, yes, join me. My name is Terror, who rides the rails eternally upon the Terror Train.
Survived this trek? No turning back. Dare resist, just try. Step back inside, we'll be your guide. So many ways to die. Upon this ride, nowhere to hide. With us, you shall remain. Upon this ride, this hellish ride, we call the Terror Train. Terror Train Podcast, Episode 113, Georgia to Alabama. Produced by Krista Clark Grabowski, David Schutz II, and Mary Genevieve Fortier. Podcast directed and arranged by David Schutz II. The conductor, your narrator, was created by and played by David Schutz II. Terror, the disembodied voice, was created by and played by Mary Genevieve Fortier. Terror Train Podcast opening and closing poems, written by Mary Genevieve Fortier. Host segment for Terror, the Disembodied Voice, written by Mary Genevieve Fortier. Production music, The House of Leaves, Chase Pulse, The Hive, and The Voices by Kevin MacLeod, Incompetech.com. Featured work: Fool Aboard, written by Stuart Keane. Production music: Night of Chaos, It Is Lost, Inexorable, Nervous, Nightbreak, Classic Horror 3, Measured Paces, Come Play With Me, Grave Blow, Unease, Medusa, Classic Horror 2, and Bump in the Night by Kevin MacLeod in Compotech.com. Additional sound effects by AudioSoundClips.com. Podcast program edited by David Schutz II. The stories and poems presented in the Terror Train podcasts are all featured in the James Ward Kirk Publishing Anthology, Terror Train, which was edited by Krista Clark-Grabowski and A. Henry Keane. Cover art by Stephen Cooney. Content copyright 2014. Terror Train, podcast episode 113, Georgia to Alabama. Copyright 2014.